Well, everybody, I think this is something we've been wanting to get back to in a long, long, long time. But we are finally live. This is our first episode live in 2020. This is the Big Gold Belt Podcast. I'm your host, 2 Chains, and as you can see, the whole crew, we're here for our very special episode 262. Live, first episode live of 2020. So we're glad to be joining you guys on our usually Thursday, which we've been pre-recording on Thursday, dropping on Fridays, but tonight we're live and we got a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, just want to make sure we send our wishes out to everybody during this COVID-19 really, really crazy things going on all over the world. Hopefully everyone's safe in their quarantine and staying sanitary and making the best of this time, productive, and doing the best they can throughout it, because it's definitely a really, really crazy time. So we're, as for the five of us, sending our best of wishes to all of you all. But we got a lot to talk about this week in the world of professional wrestling. But before we do that, too, just want to make sure I go over some of our notes really fast. First off, make sure you step over to the YouTube channel. Our new sports show has dropped. We're on episode 2, hosted by Damien, as you can see him right there. But definitely want to check that out, as he's giving a really intellectual thoughts about all the things that are going on in sports, as well as free agency, the effects of the coronavirus and so forth. So definitely check those out. But let's get started to the show. But I got to introduce the team before we do so. As I say, I'm the host, 2 Chains. I'm over to my, I don't know what side this is, but over there somewhere. Will Mahoney is over there. What's up, dude?
How's it going? We're in a quarantine 2020 this week, talking more fun with empty arena shows and all that nonsense.
Right on. Jamal the Dry Crab brother, how you doing?
This week has been a lot. I'm actually not supposed to be here right now. I'm supposed to be on a flight to Malaysia. So it's been a weird week, but let's keep moving.
Yeah, right on. Silly Sellers, brother, how you going?
Good, man. It feels like I'm in the 2-3 zone right here, but doing good.
And Damian Salty G.
What up, everybody? And I'm looking at the screen. It looks more like a 3-2 zone. So I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know how many points we're going to give up in the paint, but we're going to go hard regardless.
I'm happy I'm the 3. Actually, I probably will play the 3 in this lineup. Actually, no, I would play the 2.
Oh, we got a backcourt. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Damien, before we jump into our topics for the night, just a quick little recap about your show that you dropped.
Sure. All right. So episode 2 of Damon G Talk Sports on Big Gold Belt Network. Basically, it's, as 2 Chains said, an intellectual view of sports and just an overall big picture view, more so than who won what or who's going to win the championship. More of how does sports play out in real life and what aspects of real life we can draw from sports, be it from fans who have nothing else to do now that there's no sports on, to free agency and people getting released and traded, and what that does to the psyche of a person that is on the team and how the fans can kind of connect to that. So be on the lookout for episode 3 in a day or two. But episode 2 dropped today.
Right on. So yeah, let's definitely get into our topics for tonight. So obviously the news and the big news that came about of this week is of WrestleMania 36, which, as we talked about last week, we kind of didn't know what was going to happen. I think our last week episode was amazing. I would definitely emphasize and stress enough for you guys to please check that episode out. But we kind of put our thoughts about how they should handle WrestleMania 36, as well as the news that was available at the time. Now, a week later, as we knew, more information is going to come out, and it's been now confirmed that WrestleMania 36 will now take place at the WWE Performance Center in a 2-night event, and moving obviously from Tampa to Orlando. So, initially hearing that information, when I say 2 nights as well, too, it'll be April 4th and April 5th, 7 p.m. on the WWE Network and available on pay-per-view. And also, too, there's been kind of rumors about it being in 2 different locations as well, but that has not been confirmed. And this also will be hosted by Rob Gronkowski, ex-Patriots tight end. But initially hearing the thoughts, guys, what was your initial thoughts? And I will throw this over to Will first.
Well, I was a little surprised But here's the thing. The moment you hear it, you're kind of like 2 nights of WrestleMania, and then you start thinking about the entire scenario of what we have going on right now, and it makes so much more sense in the bigger picture. My assumption is this. The number one reason I see them doing this is because of the whole ban on crowds of 10 or even 50 people in one location at a given time. So if you spread it out amongst 2 nights, you don't have to have as many people there. And if the rumors are true, that is not just going to be at the Performance Center. There's going to be some on-location stuff happening throughout the 2 nights. That makes it even easier to spread everybody out, keep everybody safe. And if that's the whole idea, that's why they're doing 2 nights in my mind.
So I would actually like to see it done in multiple locations, not necessarily over 2 nights. But since they've canceled TakeOver, it can include some of those matches that would have happened. If they were to include some of the other NXT UK and stuff, it's big enough. And if they're going to do 2 nights, then fine. They can totally do a WrestleMania 3 situation where they have it in more than a few places at once. And that way, depending on where the talent is, they can choose which area they want to go to. Do you want to go to Phoenix or do you want to go to Orlando? Do you want to go to Vegas or do you want to go to Charlotte or wherever these places are? So obviously keeping people apart and making travel easier as travel is getting tougher, especially through the air right now, it makes sense. I don't understand what the fuss is about.
Yeah, actually, because we kind of talked about it a little bit when we talked about New Japan, and we wasn't thinking of it as this concept, but we said, could WWE adopt this method where you have multiple shows or multiple parts of your big show? So it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to lay out for WWE's taste, but we already seen it done in some type of way that we can expect that it'll be at least similar to that what New Japan did, or a little bit better since WWE has more resources of more areas, more buildings to do in this general area.
I guess the next question would be, if they're going to do this multiple region, multiple satellite locations, how many places would you prefer they do? Because, we've heard rumors of two locations, maybe 3. How much is too much to kind of get everyone on the card? I know we talked earlier offline about the Battle Royals being canceled. So now does more talent feel the pinch, or do you go with your main core roster? Because that's another problem, is that there's people going to be missing a WrestleMania payday. And that's a big thing for a lot of talent. Now, are they going to want to volunteer to do a one-off in some shack in Nebraska, if that's somewhere that WWE wants to take it to? Or are they going to want to do something where it's a ladder match for the sake of having a WrestleMania ladder match? So, yeah, we're going to have a lot of empty arenas. We're going to have some fun with the Rob Gronkowski thing. As a sports guy, there's nothing for me. I've never really liked the dude because I'm a New York Giants fan. But aside from that, I don't know if he's articulate enough to be a host. That's just me. But it's a wow factor. But how many places is too many places to be holding all these events at? I'll throw it out to the group.
Well, yeah, I'll answer that one question about him being articulate enough to be a host. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but not too long ago, New Year's Eve, he was the host of that, or at least had a segment in it.
Yeah, he was part of that show.
It was a segment, right?
Yeah, pretty cringy. But it's kind of odd to me that, speaking of sports, and I'm gonna just throw it back to you guys, that he did end up signing his WWE contract around this time, which came synonymous with Tom Brady leaving the Patriots. I wonder if he had already knew about that happening, which made him go forward with making that deal. That domino effect tends
he was already retired, so it wouldn't have
mattered. He was ready to come back last year. He said he was ready to go by the end of the season.
Well, he said his CTE was cured too, but that's beside the point,
Yeah.
I think it was all.
I'm not fond of him being a host at all. That does nothing for me at all. Just on that note. But as far as the numerous locations too, I can see it being at like a Buccaneers training facility for one. I mean, I'm pretty sure since they had the stadium claim that they probably had rights to one of their annexes or something of that sort to a smaller size venue for it to work. So maybe like the practice facility or something like that. And then the other one still being at the Performance Center or even at Full Sail still. Who knows? So the big thing to think about here is that I've seen people talk about, well, maybe they'll do something in Florida and then do something in like another city. But at the same time, you got to remember travel, with most of the talent being stationed in that Orlando area. The travel and convenience is definitely a big plus for making sure that these shows happen. So you definitely want to happen to put a couple of people in production on a plane and whatever it may be, or even traveling longer than they need to, especially with everything going on. So I'd see it really remotely close. So I would say like Orlando, Tampa, St. Petersburg areas, they're going to do multiple locations.
If you have multiple locations, the upside to me is at least it changes the aesthetic look of the show. As we've seen now with these couple episodes of Raw and SmackDown and NXT with the Performance Center setup, it's just such a sterile, kind of dull setup to look up for a long period of time. Now, maybe they change that up for WrestleMania, but even if they don't, if you at least have this, now we're going, like you said, to the Tampa Bay training facility. Now we're going to a parking lot somewhere. Now we're going to down at the beach somewhere for this. At least that will create some kind of different environment for these shows. Another question I have is just how long are these 2 nights going to be? We're used to the marathon crazy WrestleManias. And given this situation, I don't think it should be that. I think it should absolutely just be a scenario of what we've already come up with, what we've already advertised, the matches that we've been promoting. Cut your losses there. Do those matches and don't keep trying to pile everyone onto this show, even if it is 2 nights. If it's maybe 2.5, 3 hours each night, I think that's plenty. I don't think you need to go overboard on this and try to make a 4 or 5 hour show each night. We went through that with Wrestle Kingdom, and hell, we all said by the end of Wrestle Kingdom, we didn't need to be watching 10 hours of wrestling that weekend. So I would say, especially under these circumstances, dial it down. Just do the matches you already have in the can. Don't worry about getting everyone on this show.
So let me ask this quick question. Oh, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, Jamal.
I think the biggest thing is going to be logistically, where are people? A lot of people do live in Florida, and that's fine. But Oscar lives in Vegas. Xavier Woods, even though he's injured, he lives in Atlanta. Kofi lives in Austin, Texas. That's not close. So obviously, they need to decide. How have they? Where are people? And have people been in the Orlando, Tampa area, Central Florida, since Raw last week, since SmackDown last Friday? Have they just said, no, we're just going to buy a Marriott and put our people in there that don't live in the area? The second thing is, if they do have it in small set, closed locations, there are a bunch of event spaces that can more than accommodate. They could have it at the convention center here. It's a massive space to do and stage whatever they want to stage. And I think that's the biggest thing about the difference between AEW and the Raw and SmackDown is that how WWE, other than all the lasers, really didn't put any effort into dressing the show up. And we'll talk about the AEW effect later, but the idea is that this is WrestleMania, and part of WrestleMania is the stage. It is the set. It is, the ring and the entrances and the fireworks and all that stuff, along with Roman Reigns being booed out of the building. All of these things come together. And I think that if they did it in Vegas, which has a ton of event space, or if they did it in Chicago, which has a ton of event space, and Florida, I think that could work if people could get there. But obviously these matches are booked between 2 people. So AJ Styles versus The Undertaker is going to happen. Are they both in Florida? Are they one in Connecticut and one in Los Angeles? That's going to be the toughest part, is moving around those pieces. But as far as the show length, I think it should be 4 hours apiece. A 1 hour pre-show, the matches, and it's not like they can't go longer, maybe except The Undertaker. So who says that we have to have 25-minute matches?
Yeah,
we can have 5 20-minute matches, and over the course of an hour, and then throw it to Gronk and Mojo for reasons.
Yeah, I feel the energy from that one when you said it. I know you can't wait for it.
Mojo has never been more valuable right now. It's the whole damn reason it's the whole reason that guy was hired.
But let me ask this question though. With the timing part. Now, if WWE takes advantage of going to different locations, do we see anything that's pre-recorded and edited to make that production seem better? So think about this. A long time ago, we had the Brian Pillman, Steve Austin thing that everybody knows what that was famous for. So if you have an off-site location and it's WrestleMania, if you do it pre-recorded where you can have perfect edits, and the match that I'm thinking about that can be glorified with this is Edge and Randy Orton. You can take this to be so personable, based on how they're building this to make it a falls count anywhere. Maybe it's somebody's house, maybe at an offset location where you can do this to make it very appealing, to make it a great match. Do you think they'll take advantage of that?
You know what? You got the right idea, because all we need again is a Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton segment again. And the what was the house called again?
The House of Horrors.
Yeah. And the Sister Abigail being burnt. That's what you want, Sellers, right? You want that all over again.
Exactly. But it could be even more intensified, because if you have somebody with so much history with those two, so much story can be told in the 30-minute pre-taped with edits and everything match, where you can get everything that you want to make it realistic, to have some sharp angle cuts of angle views that you have from the camera. Whatever you want to do, you can take advantage of that for this type of show. And that could be your cliffhanger going to the next night if you set it up in the right way.
I see.
It's not that they can't, it's just that they won't, because they're lazy. And then that's what it is. I mean, as we've seen, history has shown us before with the House of Horrors match, or goofy stuff with like the Boogeyman or the Backlog Brawl for WrestleMania 12. They really haven't put a lot of effort into actual storytelling. And obviously in WWF, they've done some remarkable television things, being one of the first programs in high definition to go live, and being, the LED, everything. A lot of these other sports revenues, especially in NFL, have just bit off the WWE for years. Now with the opportunity to press the envelope forward in the more creative ways that we have seen, we're not seeing that. And if Raw and SmackDown and NXT, by God, are any indication of what they have going forward, I don't have any faith in their ability to make lemonade from lemons. Even if they invented the recipe, they still messing up the lemonade.
I'm also really looking forward to one of those 3D big dog images floating at the Performance Center. I
need a giant floating Undertaker urn.
What are you talking about? They're gonna have the NXT talent dress up like the props. Like someone's gonna be in a dog costume. Someone's gonna be like two halves of the horse, walking down the ringside.
Oh no.
Let me ask a quick question so we can switch over to the next topic. So again, last week we kind of talked about how we thought this was going to happen. We talked about it either going forward or ultimately being postponed, if, when, and should. Obviously, they're going forward. A lot has came out. I really don't know if this has been confirmed or not, but obviously it's got to be speculation since it's dealing with finances. But what I've been reading is that they went forward with this is because of insurance, and as far as the insurance language in this, that WWE is tasked to mitigate the damages of having to postpone / cancel this event. With that being said, if the city of Tampa then does decide to declare a state of emergency, then WWE should be able to collect damages from this. But I think honestly, when we talk about a couple of weeks ago, what was one of the biggest things we were covering, and that's the rights of pay-per-views being sold. If this man would have made that deal about a month ago, could you imagine how lucrative this pay-per-view would have been? Because he could have put any price tag on it you want and would have came out in the green easily, depending on how the method was done. If it's one of those ESPN UFC Plus type of deals, or if it's just a straight to another party, or whether it be, like I said, we talked about Yahoo Sports, we talked about all those other things that could have been contenders for this. But could you imagine if he had made that deal then, how crazy this would have been right now, considering that this easily, talking about WrestleMania, regardless of circumstances, still could easily collect the $60-$70 tier price for the pay-per-view, and people would have bought it. Nobody, they could complain all they want, but they would have bought it. But looking in retrospect to this now, moving forward with this, like it's still being rumored that they might still have a WrestleMania in New York at Madison Square Garden later on.
Nah.
Not now.
No, it's not gonna
if they
happen.
do this, that's it.
Too hot.
Yeah.
Too hot there.
Yeah. So, all right, but anyway, let's talk about now. This is probably going to be our few little things for the rest of the night, and that will be in regards to everything with the Wednesday Night War. We're not talking about ratings, and all the statistics and stuff like that. We're talking about everything that's happened between AEW and NXT as far as how they had production differences, their method in working the show without a crowd, and some of the things that came out of these two shows. So the first thing I definitely want to talk about is AEW, and I'll just quickly say that AEW absolutely blew it out the water this week.
They did.
I don't know what it was per se, and maybe once we talk about this enough, it will come to me. It just overall felt like the show that I've been wanting this entire time. It was so well paced that I didn't even realize, because I had to watch it again today. I didn't even realize that I had damn near watched 2 hours of a show, legitimately feeling like I only sat there for about 30 minutes. Time was just clicking, but it was just so well done. But anyway, before we get to that, AEW did have some new faces show up. Brodie Lee, formerly known as Luke Harper, is now announced as the Exalted One. Broken Matt Hardy has appeared. And then Lance Archer, which I don't know if he appeared last week, but this is the first time
he's been there a few weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been caught up. But anyway, aligned next to Jake the Snake, which I think is an amazing fit in its own right there. But overall, with the new signings, real quick, I'm just going to throw it to you guys, and we can kind of discuss those a little bit. Do you like how the pieces of the puzzle was laid out here, as far as these AEW new faces showing up? And the reason why I'm saying new faces and not new signees, because I got my speculation about one of these guys, but we won't talk about it yet. But I'll throw this over to Damian first. Your thoughts of these new faces that's showing up this week?
Not to sound grumpy, but this smells of TNA redone. That's the vibe I got last night watching. And again, there was no crowd, and I'm just thinking if there would have been a pop. There was a pop in the Impact Zone when these people probably debuted, when Booker T back in the day, or DDP or Raven or RVD or Christian.
Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle, WWE retreads that popped up in the Action Zone. It was like, oh my God. So I'm supposed to get amped up seeing, Woken or Broken or Token Matt show up in the rafters like he's Sting.
It is Token now. Should be Token.
It's Token now.
I like it. Count it, Damien.
He's up in the rafters like he's Sting, and I'm thinking, and the Brodie Lee thing, we kind of put 3 and 3 together and got 6 because of where it was originally supposed to air in Rochester, which is his hometown. So we kind of figured it was going to be him. A point that Will brought up, I think Will might have brought this up last night, is they saved Matt Hardy from being the Exalted One because of the Dark Order stink on Matt Hardy. Honestly, I think Brodie Lee is the better signing of the two. I mean, Lance Archer's good, don't get me wrong, and I think pairing him up with Jake the Snake Roberts in the weird backyard juggalo wrestling promotion that he was beating people up at yesterday, which was interesting. But aside from Lance Archer being paired with Jake, Brodie Lee is the bigger attraction for me, because you had nowhere else to put Matt Hardy except with the Bucks because of their history before the Hardy Boys re-signed with WWE when they were working Ring of Honor shows. Does it make me want to tune in more? No. Does it marginalize people like Darby Allin a little bit? Yes, because now we're kind of going back to the WWE reject well and hoping that keeps people entertained because they're now revamped. They're not held back by creative. They're their own, man and woman now. I'm curious to see what happens, but it doesn't move the needle for me.
Yeah, I had a lot of the same feeling and a lot of the same sentiment, especially this morning after I had time to think about it. The TNA comparison is what really jumped out at me, because you immediately have Brodie Lee and Matt Hardy show up, and they're immediately put in these prime, top featured positions from the jump. To me, it's no different than Scott Hall and Kevin Nash showing up over the hill and immediately being main eventers there in Elvis jumpsuits. That doesn't so much apply to Brodie Lee, but Matt Hardy, it is what it is. Matt Hardy brings the name value. He has that, and that's absolutely why I can see them putting in the main events. But if I'm someone, like you said, Darby, if I'm the Jurassic Express, if I'm Joey Janela, who's already expressed frustration there, let's even take it to the last WWE ex-WWE flavor of the month in the 10 guy.
Sean Spears.
Exactly. He ain't exactly in a high position right now. And so if I'm one of those guys who's either a homegrown talent or have been there a while, I'm looking now and I'm like, okay, is this going to become a trend? The Revival's rumored to be coming next. If they show up, does the trend continue? Is the trend become that it's TNA all over again, where if you have a WWE pedigree, you automatically jump the line? That's what I'm concerned about going forward.
Yeah, I disagree. Wholeheartedly disagree. And the reason why is because it's no different than in any other sport when you see that player who has raw talent or raw ability in a bad system, and you know that once he hits free agency and gets to that right team and that right system under that right coach or coaches, that's when that full potential gets unlocked, and hopefully that person will have a breakout year. I think that's kind of what the world has been waiting for with Matt Hardy. If you had the genius of Matt Hardy in TNA with the money of WWE, it should have hit on all cylinders. It didn't. So now we have the Matt Hardy's creative control with the money of AEW. So hopefully that will be the thing that we've been waiting for since he left TNA. As far as Brodie Lee coming, you could argue that, well, he's just a B-plus player, and he's just this mid-card guy, and I don't know why he gets to jump the line. But the first thing he says out the gate is to Christopher Daniels, you're not the first old man to not believe in me, but you'll be the last. So it's obvious that he's more to his character than just this, mouth breather from the bayou that he was only portrayed as. He gets to actually unlock other potentials of his character that we have not seen yet. And if you think that Brodie Lee is just a guy in a dirty wife beater that can hit hard, that's one aspect of it. There's so much more that we only saw in the indie scene up in Buffalo. And now WWE suppressed that, and now he gets to come out and cut a promo off the break. That's something that we haven't seen from Brodie Lee as Luke Harper ever.
I don't remember his voice at this point.
Right. So one other thing about the suppression of other current rising talent, I think that actually adds to it, because now we have, what if we get Matt Hardy versus Darby Allin? What if we get Brodie Lee versus Christopher Daniels? I mean, these matches, I believe, have already happened somewhere in the world. But the idea is that it absolutely gives you a different set of colors to paint with. It's not just the same, well, you need to be the next John Cena or Roman Reigns, who are all just the next Hulk Hogan. I do believe because they're playing with a different crayon box, not necessarily a bigger one, but a different crayon box, you're able to see what guys can do and hopefully do it better, or at least their vision. And I think that's one thing that AEW has done, is given wrestlers an opportunity to present their vision. Hardy won't be around for much longer, and we're not going to see the same Brodie Lee that was Luke Harper. He's a different guy now. So I don't think that we're exactly starting from mid-TNA where they're just bringing old WWE shtick to AEW. I do believe that these are people at the fact that before we saw Matt Hardy, we saw Vanguard 1, and they referenced it. And actually, at 9 o'clock Eastern, the Matt Hardy Free the Delete thing hit his YouTube channel after Brodie Lee was announced as the Exalted One. So they've been kind of gaming the system, playing everybody, saying that, no, it's Matt Hardy. No, it's Brodie Lee. Oh, my God, Raven was in the crowd. Who is the Exalted One? And then that's a thing that they've been doing. And then Brodie Lee comes out, Matt Hardy's latest episode comes out, and then there's Vanguard 1 which ties into Vanguard One showing up on Dynamite. I think the whole damn thing is borderline genius, and it's honestly really refreshing to see just storytelling convalescing over many different platforms in real time. That's something WWE hasn't done in years.
And just to add to that, and even though I understand from Will and Damien's perspective, I agree with Jamal wholeheartedly. And I'll give you one example. Even though, and this is kind of a transcending into a new topic maybe, so if I'm jumping ahead a little bit, I apologize. But just to give a perfect example of last night, where even though you're bringing in these outside talent or these WWE rejects, if you want to put the quotes in front of it, AEW did something last night that shocked me with their presentation, but it was simple and yet effective.
You're jumping ahead of the whole next topic.
Right. So if you want me to, I'll stop, but I'll transcend using Jamal's example and go to it.
My last thing, just to talk about the new faces that's showing up, is that So I do 100% agree with Jamal on here as far as getting fans invested over numerous platforms. We do know that the Bucks' success on YouTube is second to none. So good that everybody else was like, I need a piece of that pie. Cody, NWA, even Matt Hardy and them said, like, we know the success in storytelling on YouTube, and it pays great dividends. Thus, All Elite Wrestling's here. So I absolutely love that. What I really think interesting about Matt Hardy is what I was going to say is that, some people was thinking his gimmick needs to be kind of work with the crowd, which I don't totally agree, but whatever it may be, I don't think there was no reason for this to have waited any longer. And the way they did it and executed it was just, I thought was genius as well too, with all the storylines of everything all coming full circle till it happening the way it did. Plus, Matt Hardy, as much as Jamal said too, has been very vivid about the fact that he wants creative control. I don't think he was waiting around for anybody to scope, what they want him to do. I think him being next to the Bucks, somebody who understands the genius of what he wants to do, how powerful YouTube can be, and the guy's a genius as far as the character, the revamp of the character, and hell, keeping Hootie and them on his back for a year or so. Mm-hmm. They knew this had to have happened the way it is. And by the way, if anybody does not know who I'm talking about with Hootie is also the MVP of this whole thing, because with Hootie dropping out of that lawsuit with WWE not too long ago of the broken gimmick, thus we have the broken gimmick now in the AEW, and the Hardys have full control over it. So shout out to Impact and Global Force Wrestling and Hootie and Anthem and Hootie and the boys for doing something good here. But to be honest, just to my point, and we'll move to the next thing, I legit don't think Matt Hardy's going to stick around AEW long. Give him his shirt, make whatever money he can make off of that. The broken gimmick is fully his, as we know, and his wife has been very expressive about. But I think he's going to go back to doing what he did before, and that's sprinkling seeds in every promotion that he can. Just like much in his YouTube video, he named every promotion that was available. He was very grateful for his time in WWE because he probably ultimately knows that's where he's going to end up, somewhere making money behind the scenes somewhere. But I think that the stint of what he's going to do in AEW is going to be magical, and it's just going to cash checks for his next moves to come. So I do think this is why he's next to the Elite and not in this long tenured storyline with the I'm about to say the Inner Circle. Can't think of the name of it. As him not being the exalted one, because I think that's the more permanent fit, and it wouldn't have made sense for him considering that I don't see this man sticking around no longer, at least the whole year. We'll see him in Impact. We'll see him probably in ROH. We definitely will see him in NWA. I think that just absolutely has to happen. So, and then we'll see what happens after that. So that's why I think that's why they ended up aligning him next to the Elite instead of being the exalted one. But anyway, again, let's talk about the Wednesday Night War again more as Marcellus wanted to get ahead of us. And that's as far as what each show did this week as far as working with no crowds. And they absolutely took two different approaches. And Marcellus, you may go forth now with your likes of AEW this week.
Appreciate it. Now, once again, making connection back to what Jamal was saying, this is the reason why when you bring in Brodie Lee and Matt Hardy, it doesn't really matter if the talent that's quote unquote at the bottom or homegrown with AEW, they won't get lost in the shuffle because you do what AEW did last night. I didn't even think about it, but it was so effective. If you know you have talent that's on your roster that's not going to be wrestling, put them in the crowd to make it seem like they're fans for that show. And it was perfect. When you think about Sean Spears and MJF, when they was doing the little gambling shit, I was like, that was entertaining. Like literally, it caught me off guard, but that was entertaining. And the focus at them coming back and forth all night where they actually were cheering. They actually were acting like they were fans. It almost felt like, and I literally forgot when I was watching that there was no fans in the crowd. Because also what AEW did was shifted their camera view so the crowd wasn't really seen like they do at the Performance Center, but it was kind of focused on that front row, which you normally do at a WWE production in general. You normally focus on that front row because that's where your most intense fan action will be. So it was very interesting to see that, and the wrestlers were bringing that energy. And then even when you had Sammy Guevara picked up when Jericho's theme comes on, the whole fan crowd sings that theme. And what did he do? He got a mic and he sung that theme. And it was very entertaining because it showed what these talent can do, like not just in the ring, but they're building their charisma on the microphone. They're building their charisma as actors and actresses. You're taking that opportunity to build them more. So when you think about Matt Hardy or even Brodie Lee coming in, I'm not going to forget about Sammy Guevara. I'm not going to forget about MJF because they already put their work in entertaining me, with no crowd or no fans in attendance. So I thought that was very well done. Such a simple method to do, but was very, very effective.
Yeah, they definitely had a more pleasing, interactive approach on AEW compared to what we saw on Raw and SmackDown. The empty Performance Center setup is just so sterile, so lifeless. And the biggest difference is that AEW was able to break that up with was, like you said, put some wrestlers in the crowd just to be, just trash talking people, just to creating some ambiance, creating some atmosphere. What the wrestlers in the crowd reminded me of the most, it reminded me of on The Ultimate Fighter, when they would have the fights on there on the closed set, and the only people there are the two fight camps. So you have about 5-6 guys on each side of the cage, and they're just cheering for the guy, but it's at least there's some energy there. There's some like immediacy. It creates some atmosphere. And that's totally what it reminded me of. It's like those aren't the most exciting fights, but when you've come in from the WWE version where no one was there at all, it made a world of difference. The other big aesthetic thing I think they really nailed was putting the hard camera to where it was facing the entranceway. So whenever you had that hard camera shot, you weren't hit over the head with all the empty seats that are on the other side of the ring. You had the colorful entranceway as like the main background you were seeing most of the night. Just those two things, adding the fans and having the entranceway as the main background, I think made a ton of difference. And God, if I'm WWE, I don't care if people say I'm copying homework. I don't care what they say about it, because Friday, you got to make that change and do it different. Because heck, all these shows in the end, they don't matter anyway. This is extenuating circumstances. It is what it is. Just give us the best possible thing you can do and make a couple tweaks, put some guys in the crowd to trash talk, shoot the hard camera at the entranceway, and just do it to help the show, please.
Yep, absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that AEW did was that they actually dressed the room. Daly's Place is a lot bigger, as we've seen at Fyter Fest, than what this episode of Dynamite will let you believe. And that's because they cut off a lot of the sight lines. They actually moved the entrance to the middle of the stage instead of off to the side, which is where they had it for Fyter Fest. They had the giant black drapes to make this thing feel more intimate, and they also lit it well, where the only thing that you saw, aside from the backlit stage, was the ring. There were no other lights, and there were lights on the commentary table. So it really gave it a really smaller, intimate feel, even though we knew that it was empty. The one thing that WWE should do, and I think they should do this for WrestleMania, wherever they have it, is actually build a set. If it's a pirate-themed WrestleMania, then literally build a tropical island, or literally build Bermuda in 1785, or a saloon or a boat or whatever the case is. Because if you're not going to have the crowd, replace the crowd with ambiance. And I think that even though they didn't have a crowd last night, that still played into it. The Butcher and the Blade lost because MJF distracted them, which is the thing that probably wouldn't have happened on the regular show. I don't know where Shawn Spears got that chicken from. These are the questions that now we have to answer. And I think that WWE, with their money, with their talent, can definitely build more ambiance. And I think that that's the difference. If you really want to do it, they can green screen the whole damn thing and set it on an actual pirate ship. I mean, you can do that. If the Avengers can make all of that shit look real, WWE can put a wrestling ring on a boat virtually.
Don't give them ideas, man.
No, I'm saying, but that's what they have to do now.
Yeah.
It's a better option than what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And instead of shooting, or having Triple H host a highlight show with Tom Phillips, or, which I guess, or do Raw or SmackDown, and you just overlay that with 3 hours, and they can still overlay that with the history stuff. This is your historical match of the night. We're going to show you a 20-minute match from a great pay-per-view. If you've never heard or seen Edge before because you're too young, we're going to show you the TLC match from WrestleMania 2000. They can still put that into Raw and kill 25 minutes, but this show still must go on. The biggest thing, and I'll close with this, the biggest thing that AEW did was the subtle pivot in tone from we're here to entertain you, so let us entertain you. And this is what Cody Rhodes said to open the show.
Yep.
To transition it into actual story. So he went from this isn't the show that we want to do, but here we are. And under these circumstances, I need my best at my side. And then he pivoted that into a rallying cry for the Elite as they go into the Blood and Guts match next week, hopefully, God willing, on the show. And I thought that was a subtle thing because initially we know why we're here. He addressed the elephant in the room, and then he transitioned out of that and never mentioned it again because it was all about the show at that point. And I thought that was a stroke of brilliance.
Yeah, you definitely covered my points on AEW. The monologue by Cody in the beginning was amazing. Having a roster in the crowd was an amazing idea. I thought the vignettes was good. I don't know if you guys heard at the very end, the camera guy counting off the TV time, really, really loud. If you watch the YouTube replay, you don't hear it, but if you watch the original stream on TNT, you hear it. But I mean, regardless if you hear it or not, they nailed it. They did. You would think they've done this before, as just everything about it just was so fluent, which is so alarming to me because it's like you think we all got this idea of like Triple H being the savior of WWE, and if he had weeks to see Vince or whoever doing both Raw and SmackDown each week, and NXT one week, and enough sample dose to see how the crowd and the internet and everything's responding to it, it's really alarming to me that he did go with the same method that these other shows use. Have these guys come out, run a match, and like Jamal said, it felt like a recap show that just really went too long. But what I want to do really quick before actually kind of going down that path, kind of negative. What did you guys like about AEW's presentation, or what would be some things that you would tweet, or hopefully that they'll bounce back with for next week? Because that recap was something else.
So I'll jump in here. Big shout out to Antoine Keels in the live comment chat for chiming in. Thank you for joining us. But I did enjoy putting wrestlers in the crowd because for me, it gave me an independent wrestling feel where if it's a real light crowd, people who have worked earlier in the night will sit in the audience and they will boo and hiss and cheer just like their fans. So if you're familiar with independent wrestling, you kind of look at that as an homage to say, okay, that's pretty cool. The thought of those two guys gambling, even though they quote unquote weren't gambling, was pretty good. Jamal's right. Where did he get the chicken from? I need that answer because if everything's quarantined, where'd you get the chicken? Honestly, what they need to fix or tweak, I didn't have any problems with last night's show. I rewatched it this morning. it was still fresh for me. It wasn't too cheesy or corny. I think WWE, what they have to fix beside crowd is just energy, something. They need to have make it a Byron Saxton show. I don't care. Show him getting kicked in the balls about 20 times. I don't know. Just energy and not, what was the word, sterile, which given the current circumstance of the world, I think that's pretty appropriate. I'm curious to see what the blood and guts match is going to look like with all the health mandates going out. You know, you can't have more than 10 people at one time, or some places are no more than 5 people at one time.
I think it's safe to say that no one's caring about that limit.
No. Okay, so
people
first of all, that's not law. Let's be clear on that. So that is a guideline from the CDC. So that is not law in Jacksonville, Florida. However, it is recommended that you don't do that. Now, AEW has a wellness policy. They definitely have doctors and EMT on site. So though it is not recommended, it is a closed set. And I'm going to assume that people who were there and tested and checked out. We got to assume that, because why in the hell would all of the talent be allowed to be around the ring so close to each other?
Right.
And then, of course, work any match. It doesn't matter how many people there are if you're working an actual wrestling match. I mean, that's as close as you're going to get. And as we've seen with the NBA, as more players are coming undone, it doesn't really matter. It's a wrestling match with a lot more physicality than the close contact than the NBA. Now, what should WWE do differently? Everything. And I really think that they should take this time, if they're going to use the Performance Center, make it not look like the Performance Center. Actually build a full set, a stage. Turn the Performance Center into a sound stage and build it for Monday Night Raw. And then tear that down on Wednesday and rebuild it for NXT. And then tear that down on Friday and rebuild it for Friday. You have the opportunity right now to create a literal 3D space for wrestlers to be in. The only difference is there's no crowd. So this is your sound stage. You are shooting a movie that just happens to be a wrestling show. And WWE can do that because the Marines 9, San Diego will be coming out on top.
So again, what did you guys like as far as the production this year? This week, sorry.
I think we said it. We liked.
Yeah, we literally said it.
I'm saying the rest of you guys. Everybody got your point.
No, I'm good. I agree with everything that everybody said on that part.
I was trolling you guys. I was trying to get myself to say something. You've been hot this whole time. He's just like, nope, nothing for me at all. Again, I don't know what I was watching. I mean, it was good to see the recap. So, but again, like I put it in our when we was talking online, it felt like a WWE network special that was placed on TV. I mean, I guess, but no, because that's not what you're looking for when you talk about each week for NXT TV. I mean, just put it on the network for all that. They have people to catch up, and then talk about working cross platforms. It's an opportunity they could have made with that as well there too. But here we are.
I mean, I guess the question I have is, where is the actual production for WWE? Like they drive the trucks around the country, but where is the physical set for Raw? And why isn't that in Orlando being built in Full Sail or the Performance Center?
That's a good question.
Like seriously, like is there a reason why they didn't, put on an effort? Even with the ring, with the LED post or something. Why did they just use what they had at the Performance Center instead of building up a scaled down production for Raw?
I don't know. Maybe they were just optimistic that this was going to brush over quicker than they.
Who the hell thought that? It's been going on since Christmas, and now all of a sudden people want to act like, Corona here, so I guess we got to deal with it.
Every time for everything they've been doing shows that. I mean, they've literally been the last major event to say that, hey, we are not canceling. So
up until Monday, WrestleMania was still happening at the stadium.
Right.
Very.
Now, I do want to bring up I do want to bring up a comment that Antoine put up again. Now, I'm knocking on wood. I hope this doesn't happen. But if one wrestler does test positive, this is going to throw a whole loop on everything. It's going to be terrible time
totally.
WWE, AEW.
Not WWE.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Absolutely not.
You don't think so?
Not WWE.
They literally peeled Owen Hart off the canvas and went to a commercial and then came back with a match.
Right. Literally, my man died on air. So,
well, that's true.
And we talked about it in previous episodes about the time when there was that illness running rampant where Kurt Angle filled in for Roman Reigns and we didn't get the Sister Abigail versus Finn Balor match where they just said, okay, next person up. So
half the roster have viral meningitis.
Right. So I know Vince is going to have a doc on hand saying test. And here's the even better question. Do they even tell you? Do they make an announcement of certain people testing positive if they test positive?
No.
They ain't gonna want that publicity.
Coronavirus testing the whole match.
And apparently all they did this week since they've been at the Performance Center is they're just taking people's temperatures before they let them in the building. It's not like they got tests or nothing. Those things are locked down like hell. Yeah, that's all they're doing. I guess that's what they did at AEW too. Now, notice last night on Dynamite, they were very careful about the way they worded things. At no point did they say Blood and Guts is next week. They said Blood and Guts is next time on AEW. So if something falls apart this week, and hey, we do got to say this, they had more people there around that ring. So what if Jake Roberts suddenly, comes up with a positive test?
Well, I mean, Rio was in a match, so we must protect Rio at all costs.
And Hikaru,
we got to remember this ain't just a WWE thing. This is an everybody thing. So I think AEW was very careful about being like, you know what, we're balancing a house of cards here. And if something falls apart this week, we might not be on next Wednesday. We might be doing our own best of show.
I guess my question is, so let's say that, obviously a lot of talent weren't there. I want to believe that the entire locker room was out and about in the crowd, and because they showed Sonny Kiss, they showed Cole Cabana, and I know that these guys had matches on Dark. Now the real question is, WrestleMania aside and Dynamite aside, do you just start taping matches, let's say a month's worth of matches, and just shoot it?
And can them? I see AEW doing that. Yep, I see AEW absolutely doing that.
If you can, absolutely.
Those dudes are content creators, so they already know what it is. And you know what? It's really odd. And if this ever is to happen, if somebody like Xavier Woods gets to be somewhat involved with creative with WWE in a bigger majority that it reflects what happens on television, he'll take that same scheme. Because I noticed today on Up, Down, Down how he talked about, he says, look, I don't care what you guys say about how you feel about each one of these shows. We already take 6 of these episodes ahead, so it doesn't really matter. That's the philosophy you need to have when creating content, and in the case of an emergency, as a good contingency plan. And I would imagine that the Bucks and them are already ahead of this, thinking like, all right, this is what we need to do. And with the Hardys being involved now, I would not be surprised if they do some stuff at the compound just because. And people will buy into it because the matches at the Hardys compound literally kept Hootie and them afloat for that year. So it works. We know it. We really know it. So, yeah. But little simple question to you guys, and I think this is going to be a no-brainer. I mean, again, we're talking about the Wednesday Night War. Who won this week?
Is it even a vote?
It's not even close.
Well,
WWE didn't even try a fight this week.
Here's the thing. A better question is, it was the ratings were like 935 to 546. The real question I have is, how in the blue hell are 500,000 people still watching NXT?
All the people from Full Sail that can't get in there are telling their friends to watch it too.
Right.
Optimism, I guess, but yeah, they're going to
because I get it. Everybody's watching the news right now. They need the news. The news is, I think AEW was like 20th or something like that in the key demographics because of everybody else is watching the news. But how are 550,000 people watching NXT? What are you looking at? I mean, you literally watched a pre-show to a takeover that's not going to happen.
They needed Gargano Ciampa recap. They needed that hour of that to relive all that fun.
But I don't get it.
So yeah, speaking of news really quick, and then we'll wrap the show up for the night. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in to our first live show of 2020. This has definitely been fun, and you can expect to see this more often. But if you interact with us, you can also have you can chat with us in either of the respective chat room, whether it be Periscope, whether it be YouTube or on Facebook. Your comments display, we'll have it up there. Maybe you can intertwine in our weekly topics. So make sure you not only just listen but interact with us. But speaking of news, really, really quick, I heard something very funny today. Well, not funny, but it's actually not surprised when I think about it. But DDP Yoga sales went up 35% because of the quarantine. Because everyone's trying to get their workout on, and
can't go to the gym.
Available. Yep. So my man DDP, 35% increase in sales because of this.
There might be a small thing attributed to Simon Miller, who might be a shill of DDP Yoga, talking about it on his YouTube channel and on What Culture the last week and a half, talking about he loves yoga, he loves DDP Yoga. So there might have a little bit of connection to that too in the wrestling scope.
Good point.
Yeah, but I mean, but 35%, that's more than just the wrestling community there.
Don't people know there's free yoga on YouTube? You don't got to pay for it.
It got look.
But then you don't feel the bang.
Reputable in the So, Will, what you be doing in your spare time? Sounds like you might got the DDP Yoga hanging out over there.
I've never seen it. To try in real life. I might be having to, like you said, with the gym closed, I might be having to get some DDP Yoga downloads. Hook your boy up, Dallas. Come on.
The state closed my apartment gym while I was in it today. They came with the signs and said, well, finish your workout, but then you got to go. I'm like, okay.
And DDP
I do DDP Yoga. I like it. It's fine. Oh, yeah.
And DDP Yoga also single-handedly has Jake the Snake out here cutting the best promos of ever.
And Scott Hall shooting a shot with random girls on Twitter, apparently.
Yeah, right. But yeah, since we're back to doing live shows, that only means that we got to be back to doing our live interviews. So by all means, people, let us know in the comments whether you're listening to this live now on YouTube or you're going to be listening to us on iTunes or whatever your audio listening platforms, because we're on all of those, whether it be Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all that good stuff. We're everywhere. Let us know, because we're definitely going to get back to our MO, and that's definitely having at least one guest interview a month. And more importantly, which I've been thinking about, is that, independent wrestlers, with all of the independent promotions being closed shop as of right now because of the coronavirus, it would be good to be able to get some people on here to hopefully get able to promote them, how they're handling doing this, and spotlight some people. That way, our audience and fan base can get acclimated with whoever the guest is, and be able to help support in any means they can. Because with WrestleMania, the weekend and everything being shut down, it's truly hurts a lot of these people's big paydays for them, and a lot of these people look forward to this not just for, or maybe not even for, the entertainment aspect, strictly business. And with them being 100 promotions, 100 shows being ran that weekend, and not being able to get any of those bookings, totally got to do what we can to try to help these independent contractors and promote and wrestlers be spotlighted so they can continue forward. But is there anything else, guys, we need to cover before we're done for today?
No, I mean, personally, I think that Marriott, just absolute scumbags. And we can talk about that later as that story on develops. But they basically aren't refunding WrestleCon for their stay at the hotel to host the event. So that sucks. And
Wait, there's more information that's came out about that. But if people want to listen to our conversation about that, go ahead, Jamal. You know how to finish that statement, as long as what you gotta say.
But yeah, I mean, absolute scumbags. But yeah, I don't know about the newest developments, but still, rest in peace to the Gray Sweatpants Memorial Battle Royal. That was one event that I was certainly looking forward to.
Yeah, Faye Jackson is a visionary that we had no clue about, and that was going to absolutely be. They have Crime Time going to be there.
Literally Crime Time and Gray Sweatpants.
To be able to get them out of here, get them on the show. So yeah, that's definitely that's super important. I was definitely looking forward to that one as well too. Man, maybe we'll get Faye Jackson on the show. It's been a while since we've chatted with her. I chat with her often every time I see her. But
also, there was supposed to be a yoga pants match also on the card. So the men and the women were going to be represented equally on the show. So a little disappointing. And I want to just talk about something Jamal brought up about making a boat for WWE for WrestleMania. I question actually before we go, how much cost cutting do you think Vince is going to go into? Because he's not going to get a lot of revenue out of WrestleMania.
That's a good point.
That depends on if his insurance claim from Tampa, the city of Tampa, comes through.
Yeah.
Because if he can't recoup his losses, and he's supposed to be losing somewhere between 25 and $30 million on this endeavor, if he can't recoup some of those losses in like insurance claims, then he'll probably just put a bunch of cardboard boxes in the background and call it WrestleMania. But if he can, then we'll see. And obviously, since everybody's watching, this would probably be the perfect time to announce that WWE WrestleMania is going to be $75.99 on ESPN Plus.
I mean, how much is he kicking himself that deal wasn't done all of 2-3 weeks ago before everything went sideways? Because I cannot see a big mega deal like that happening right now, not in this climate.
No.
Self-quarantine after all this happened. He was like, he was sick. I can't. And
the XFL canceled their season, so
hard times, baby.
Hard times. Well, anyway, that will do it for this show tonight. This has definitely been a really fun one, and it was definitely cool to get back to doing something live with you guys. Maybe we'll come back and do it next week. All of us got a lot of free time on our hand, but if not,
we're not dead.
Each and every Thursday we will be recording our weekly episode, dropping early Friday morning for all your listening purposes. And as I was trying to allude to earlier to Jamal, exclusive content is still on our Patreon page that keeps our lights on going. Obviously, our next topic has to be the whole the WrestleCon thing that's going on. So we'll be happy to drop that very soon. So you can step over to our Patreon page. Actually, step over to our website, biggoldbeltgroup.com. Step over to the donate tab. That gets you there. We have a merch tab, news tab, all the tabs in the world are all up there. So definitely get up there and check us out. But for this week's episode, I think that'll do it. And again, as you can see from the banners below, our sponsors by the Snack Society, Will and the Boys, and then Damien and his show, because that's the thing. You gotta make sure you plug it. And again, the sports show on the YouTube channel where you can check that out as well too. But that'll do it for the week, and we will catch you guys next time.